Chemical engineering touches everything. Chemical engineers work in manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, design and construction, food processing, microelectronics, biotechnology, and environmental health and safety industries, among others. And they even work at universities as researchers. Latinas have several options to work in many areas with a degree in chemical engineering. Welcome to Ask a Latina. My guest today is Fernanda Sulantay. She's a PhD student over at Yale University. She's a researcher, and I'm excited to have her as our guest. Welcome. Thank you for being with us, Fernanda.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited.
And so am I. Okay, so let's start with where you came from, your upbringing, and tell us a little bit about that and how you led to um, in your interest in engineering.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in El Salvador. So I've lived in El Salvador most of my life actually. I moved to the US when I was 19 years old. I moved to Connecticut. And when I came here, I went to a community college and then a 4 year college, graduated with my bachelor's in chemical engineering, and now I'm pursuing, as you said, my PhD in chemical engineering at Yale University, and this is my second year. So yes, for 19 years of my life, I live in El Salvador, and it was a big change for me coming to the US.
Wow. So, what made you decide to come to the US at 19? And did you know you wanted to be an engineer before you came?
So I finished high school in El Salvador, and I actually started studying in the university there in El Salvador. So I did like 1 year and a half, and I did study chemical engineering. So I already knew at that point that I was going to study chemical engineering. And I came here because my dad came, like, he moved to the US for better opportunity, the usual stuff when I was very young. And then later on, he was able to sponsor us when I was 19. And that's why I came here. Like, my parents decided that they thought that it was better for me and my sisters. I have two sisters, better opportunities. And that's why I moved. And just coming back to your question of how I decided to study engineering, in like, I always actually loved studying, and I loved like school. And I remember in middle school I started learning algebra, and it was just so interesting to me. It was like a game doing these algebra problems. We had like all these algebra, like factorization cases and stuff, and it was just so fun. And then later on, I had to take all these science classes like chemistry, biology, physics, and it was super interesting to me because I was learning like how the world works. Because like every explanations, it involves science, and it was just so interesting. Like, I was super interested, even though I wasn't like, like the perfect student, but these classes were super interesting to me. And then, when I was graduating, like, my math professor suggested I should be an engineer. My mom also told me that, and I actually decided to study engineering, but I didn't know too much about it. I didn't know what an engineer was. I just knew they use math and they use science, and I like those, so I was like, let's just do it. Yeah.
That sounds exciting. Now, you're the only one that's an engineer in your family, or anyone else?
Yeah, no, I'm the only one. So, like, my parents, I'm a first generation student. My parents didn't even go to college. They don't like math at all. I couldn't ask them that. And my two sisters, they also don't like math. Yeah, so I'm the only person in STEM in my whole family.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. They have somebody who's kind of trailblazing in this area. That's awesome. So, what was it like as far as once you came here? to study, you went to community college, which is really good. You do a lot of savings there. At least I did go to one myself before I went to a full 4-year college. So, what was that experience like? And first of all, you're new, and then how did you adjust to everything and the classes, and what did you do to make sure you overcame any challenges?
Yeah, so it was, yeah, an interesting time because at the same time that I was starting college as a first generation student, and as I said, like that means that my parents didn't go to college, I was also an immigrant. Like I just moved from another country. And it was a lot of adjusting. We were talking before, like the weather was super different. El Salvador is super warm. Here in Connecticut, it's very cold. The language was different. My English was not good at that moment. And I was like desperate to start school again because I just didn't want to take time off, but my English was not good, So I remember I started school and I still couldn't speak to people, but I was better at reading. So what I did to overcome that challenge is that every semester, since the first semester at the community college, I got the books before like classes started for my classes, and I emailed the professors and asked for the syllabus to see what it was going to be covered. And I started studying and reading beforehand because I felt like I was going to fall behind, or like, just in the middle of the semester, I don't know. And so I wanted to be prepared, and I started studying beforehand, and I realized that it was easier for me to read than actually like speak to people. So but I mean that was helpful. And honestly, thankfully, like math, it's the same in every language. So in engineering you take a lot of math. And yeah, so that's what helped me in that sense. And honestly, another thing that was helpful, it was just putting myself out there. I saw opportunities, and I just wanted all the opportunities. I remember I signed up for this program, and I went to this program, which was kind of like it was like an engineering program, and we had to work on a project during 6 months. But I remember the first day that I got there, people were talking and I just couldn't understand them. And the first day I went home and I was crying, like, I don't get it. Like, they're smart and I don't know English, right? And yes, but then, I was like, no, like you have to go back and just do it, right? And I just put myself out there, and that program like helped me so much. I learned so many new engineering skills, and my communication skills got better. And it was like because I was putting myself, and it was not easy. I was not happy all the time, but I just kept doing it. And it ended up paying off at the end.
Wow, that's great. So, was this an extra program outside the college, or a special group?
Yeah, so this program is it's funded by the National Science Foundation, and one of my engineering professors talked about it in my first engineering class at the community college. And I saw it, I was like, oh my god, like I want to be part of this. And then we had to work on this project, and we could work on it during the weekend. So during the week I will work because I had to work full time. I'll take my classes, and then over the weekend I will work on this project. And it was very helpful because at the beginning we learn a lot of theory the beginning years, and we get to work on projects until the end, like senior year we have senior design projects. But these gave me the opportunity to actually do something beforehand. Like as a freshman, I was learning how to code, how to use SolidWorks, which is a program that actually, as a chemical engineer, we don't learn it, but mechanical engineers learn it because it's more like manufacturing and mechanical. And like what I want to say is that I learned engineering skills that I would have not learned in my major. So it was helpful, and it helped me get a job as an engineer before I even graduated with my bachelor's.
Oh, wow, that is really great. And it's nice to know that you were able to learn so many different things in other different engineering areas because there's so many different ones. So, where did you end up getting a job?
Yeah, so as I said, I started at a community college, right? And one thing I know that there's a misconception about community college. Sometimes people here that grew up in the US, they I've heard they don't want to go to a community college because they have like a negative view of it, but I really loved it. As you said, I saved money. And then once I graduated with my associate's degree, that's a degree that you can use to get a job. So, besides my experience and the degree that I was getting, just halfway through my bachelor's, right? I got this job as a project engineer in an aerospace company here in Connecticut.
That's great. How exciting. So that's really good. You made some really good points there about the community college. That is so true. I think that I don't know why there's a negative, but yet I think I even like the culture in the community college because there's all different kinds of people there, different ages too, and everyone's so dedicated. It's almost like being in a real world community. To be honest with you, that's how real world working would be. You know, you'd see different people in different ages. So that is awesome. So what was it like to be in that job?
And in the job, I it was very challenging at first because obviously like I had no experience. It was my first big job, right? And I was always like the youngest one. And I think that maybe I just didn't believe on myself or my opinion because everyone seemed older than me and like they knew more than me. But I learned a lot. But in this experience, I also realized that I don't want to have a corporate job. I realized that I actually, later on, I also tried research and realized that I like doing research more. I can still have like a research job in a corporation, like in research and development. But I mean, I just like, I tested both sides, like having like a regular corporate job and having a research job. And I just thought that, yeah, research was more interesting.
That's good. So so after the community college, where did you transition to next as far as your education?
So after I graduate, I transferred to the University of Connecticut to finish my bachelor's.
Great, great. And chemical engineering, I assume.
Yes, yes,
Okay, good. And so that's wonderful. And so now here you are at Yale and you're doing research. That's
yes.
awesome. So tell us about what's it like to be doing research at Yale? You know, everyone Yale's a very prestigious college or university, so that's pretty exciting that you have that
Yes,
opportunity. Oh my goodness, that's great. So
yeah.
what's it like?
Yeah, so doing research, it like days are never the same. And this is one thing that I love. Like when I had the corporate job, I felt like it was very monotonous. But now, like doing research is like it's always different. You're always researching, reading scientific papers, developing like new stuff, like new science. And so like it's always different for me depending on like what stage I am. So I can either be like, researching, reading the scientific papers, or creating my experiments. And then once I get my data, analyzing this data. And it's kind of like always doing the same thing, but like I encountered these problems, so I have to like go back and read more. And I'm always learning more. And my research is computational, so I have to code a lot. Like I don't have to go in the lab, even though like I feel like a lot of people think that chemical engineers they're all in the lab. My lab is actually computational, so like it's still chemical engineering research, but we code, like we do all the analysis and the experiments by coding.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that. I always thought the same thing too. I think, well, wasn't I computer engineering? But now that I understand that you do have to put data somehow in there, so that makes more sense to me now understanding that. That's great. So in your whether it was, in your youth or in college, did you ever have mentors or how did you reach out to other people to for help or, mentoring you?
Yes. So I think that very few times I have asked someone specifically like, can you be my mentor? Because like you can have like different mentors. Sometimes they help you for a little bit. That was your mentor in that moment, right? Sometimes you have like a long relationship with someone and you keep asking them questions, so that can be a mentor too. So I think along the way, I did had some mentors, but one specifically stands out, and which is one of my advisors right now at Yale, and he's a professor at Yale, and like he really showed me like, okay, this is what a mentor it's supposed to be like because he's just like so nice and so supportive. Honestly, like when I started doing research at Yale, as I said, like I wouldn't, especially coming to Yale, I just wouldn't believe I wasn't believing at that moment that I deserved to be there. I'm like, wait, did they make a mistake on my application? Like, is it really me? Yeah, I just because like my parents didn't go to college. I'm an immigrant. Like, I could barely speak English a few years ago, and now I'm here, right? But yeah, like he was always super supportive, and he always told me like you can do it. He will explain to me. And the first year that I started at Yale, I applied to two fellowships. One of them it's by the NSF. It's like this big fellowship, and I was like, I'm not gonna get it, And like he kept just pushing and working with me and really mentoring me of how to like tell my story. And at the end, I ended up getting the fellowships. And
That's great.
yes,
Oh my God, that's great. Oh,
thank you. And but I mean, his support, like, yeah, I just realized, like, wow, like this is what a mentor is supposed to be like, right? And now when I mentor people, I like put all my passion as well.
that's good. So there were two fellowships. Did you apply for the other one too?
Yes, yes. The other
Or was
one,
one or the other?
yeah, I applied separately and got both.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yes.
Oh my God, he's a great mentor. That's
Yes,
so
yes.
good. No, but you put a lot of work into it, I'm sure. So it's the reason that you're the one that got it because of what you know and your knowledge. So I'm sure that was he just knew you had it all and he just pushed you. That's all.
Yes, no, definitely. He helped me a lot. Like sometimes we just need, someone to really be supporting you and believe in you. And, as I said, like he's a Yale professor. Like if he believes in me, then okay, I have to believe in myself.
That's funny. It's funny because the first time that we met, I thought, "Oh, you work there," and remember I told you, I said, "Oh, it's like the Big Bang Theory." It was like that's the only thing I ever thought. I'm like, that's the first time I think that anybody who might be, our audience here might have understood that you could work at a university as a researcher, as an engineer too. So I think that's pretty cool. I think it's nice to know what it's like, and it sounds like you really enjoy it, and it's nice to know that there's that opportunity for Latinas to
Yes,
work in a university.
yes.
um are there many Latinas there, or you other than you?
Actually, in my department, I think I'm the only Latina in like the whole chemical and environmental engineering department for graduate school. I don't know the undergrads, but yeah, like I think I'm the only Latina. And then for Latinos, I think there's one more person, and that's it. So we're very few, but the thing is that we need more Latinas in engineering, and even in the corporate world, I think the statistics are very low. Like Latinas representation is low, but right now we're getting more, and that's why we have to like get people excited because we need you. We want more representation.
Yeah, we definitely do. And so we went back. Now you've gone through such a great journey. I really am excited. So if you went back before you came from El Salvador and you were 17 or 18 before you came, what advice would you give yourself now that you've gone through all this journey?
So one of the things is, first of all, like I will tell myself to believe in myself. That's one thing that I think I struggled with. Like, I always thought that I didn't know enough, and sometimes felt like I didn't have to give my opinion because I was just young. But sometimes, like that's actually important. I mean, not sometimes, always it's important, because we're in college, we're learning new things that we bring to the table, when we come at work with older people. Like, we bring fresh ideas, we all have different backgrounds. As a Latina immigrant coming from another country, I know now that I bring another perspective to the team, and that's valuable. I know that I bring new ideas, because right now I'm studying, right? So I'm learning, like, what's new right now. So that will be like what my first, like, advice. Like, tell myself, like, you got this, your opinion is important, you don't have to know everything, like, you never stop learning, actually. Like, it's never gonna be perfect. And then the other thing that I will go back and say, it's also to take care of my mental health, because this happened when I moved here. I was working. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I had to work full time while I was going to school full time. And I was also trying to, like, have everything perfect, like have A's, and like just be like a perfect student, and always didn't care about my mental health. And also, I don't know, but I think that growing up as a Latina, I feel like Latinos right now, they're starting to, like, notice more the mental health aspect. But growing up, it's like you couldn't complain. If not, you were weak, and you just had to be strong and keep going. And that's what identifies us, right? To work hard. We're hard workers. But that mentality, like, I always thought, like, if I had an anxiety attack, I was like, there's no way I'm not having an anxiety attack. This is like, I have a physical problem. There's no way this is anxiety. And I just, like, couldn't accept it. But now that I have learned and I have started taking care of myself, you actually, like, are better at working. Like, you can be more productive if you take care of yourself.
That is such an excellent point. I think that we all go through that. I mean, and it's and we I think with me, because of being a Latina, we have this culture of the our faith. So leave it to God and everything. But then if something like this happens, there's this taboo about seeking help or medication for like anxieties, and it's really wrong because it really is important. Like you said, I'm glad you did that because we all go through some anxiety, whether in any time of our lives. It could be at the beginning, like you were studying and doing a lot, and a lot of us do more than one thing. We seem to, as Latinas, have a lot of roles, even with our parents. Even if they're not here, we have, this concern for them and they're wherever they are. So I think that's great. That's great advice. I really like that because that's really a good point. Your mental health is so important. And we're finding that out with a lot of athletes, even like in the Olympics, with the
Oh,
gymnastics there.
yes.
I thought that was an excellent point that she did. So that's great. So what is your favorite quote? And we're going to end it that way. So I know that you have a good one.
Yes, yes. I have my email to, like, show it to everyone and just remind myself every day. But yeah, it's "You Never Fail Until You Stop Trying" by Albert Einstein. And I love this quote because growing up, I think, like, I always thought that I had to be perfect and I couldn't fail. That I had to get it right from the start. And then engineering school and research taught me that failing is good, because it's part of the process. You're learning, okay, this is not the way that I have to do it. And then you keep exploring different ways. So, I mean, when something fails, you're actually evolving, learning, changing. And until you actually stop trying, that's when you actually fail. So I really love that.
No, that's great. I love it, especially because it's Albert Einstein, so it's awesome. There's so many quotes out there. I never heard that one, but it really resonates. And I think everyone should listen to that one and post it in front of them, because no matter where in your life, it's really good to never, never give up. So
Yes.
thank you. Well, is there any advice you want to give Latinas that are in high school, other than everything else that you've told us, which has been awesome?
Yes, my advice is that I know, like, I've heard a lot of girls saying that they don't want to go into engineering or a STEM field or just do whatever, sometimes they stop themselves because they feel like they cannot do it, they're not good enough. And let me just tell you, like, we're all struggling, like, I have friends who work at NASA, at Microsoft, like these big companies, and they struggled in college, they struggle sometimes now. Like, we're not perfect, like we don't have everything figured out, so like don't think that you have to get it like right the first time. Like, it's a process and you have to work for it. That's what matters. So like don't be afraid of having these big dreams.
Thank you. Thank you, Fernanda. I really appreciate your time, and that's great advice. So, well, this concludes our episode with Asa Latina. I hope you'll join us in the next one. Thank you.